Wow. I feel like that was a little extended this time.
It's just been a long time, Ron.
Well, I don't know. That was like, I feel like it went past that barrier.
Oh, you think
Like,
so?
like it may have broken through.
Hey, Ron. It has been a little while. We had, as Dana was pointing out, maybe the deep state trying to prevent us from producing this epic show, but we're back.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't just say like we're back without explaining like you've had fires,
Yes,
you've had floods,
yes.
and that's all real. It's not like it's a joke.
Yeah. I had an epic plumbing cascade of problems. A sink just wouldn't turn off in the garage. Our water heater busted a leak in the bottom. Our sink clogged. Then, in the process of unclogging it, I ended up lodging something in our toilet. So we had to remove our toilet and get inside of that. So we had some interesting plumbing things going on.
Then you had a neighbor's garage burn down, which affected your internet.
Well, that was before. So we had no internet for approximately 2 weeks. I think we got it back the day of the show last week, but we were I think that happened. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was gone. But it didn't catch our garage on fire, but it did light up the telephone wires and melted them, I guess. So that affected our internet service.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been like cave people for the past month.
No internet and no hot water.
Wow. For 2 weeks like that.
Well, I don't know if it's 2 weeks for the hot water, but about that.
It felt like 2 years. So I was
Yeah.
boiling water. I'd boil water on the stove to wash dishes and to bathe my children in basins and things like that.
Mm.
Well, you I think you've always kind of wanted to do the whole commune thing, so that lines up with that. Gives you a little taste of what it may be like.
It was a little rough, but I did think not so much the commune, but I thought being used to this way of doing things is really good preparation for a disaster like an earthquake or just our general life, I guess,
Yeah, we
can
were
be
prepping the last 2 weeks.
disastrous. Yeah, we're intensely prepping. But we did
Yeah.
have internet because our neighbors let us borrow Wi very spotty. So we were in, and I guess that segues into our week, right, Jeff? Since we watched something online together and it caused a intense debate between you and I.
Oh, yeah, that segue means, we went into watching the internet again because we got it back and we had I wouldn't call it an intense debate, but I guess you were surprised by the position I took.
Really?
Shocking, huh,
Surprised.
Ron?
Because that's weird because like I
You,
know
you thought we were the two-headed beast?
well no, I mean, Dana, that's the logical conclusion. Like it always happens that way with Jeff.
He's a surprising guy. So, so I guess to
Well,
just
no, not
introduce the
not
topic.
surprising. Not surprising. He
Uh,
always
oh, he's
kind of takes that position.
he's a contrarian.
Well,
How
no,
dare you?
no, no. I think. Well, I'll explain once we get into the topic. How about that?
Sure. So the topic for all of our numerous listeners out there was posted by a friend on Facebook, and it was a recent Steven Crowder Change My Mind episode. So he's at the university in Texas. I think it's a Texas Christian University or some type of Christian school. And he had a sign that said something like rape culture is a myth, change my mind. So I'm not so Ron, you said you saw this episode. So obviously it provoked some intense responses, and especially the first two, she was really emotionally upset that he would have this position that rape culture is a myth because she claims to have been raped, assaulted, and she talked about so many women on campus have those same experiences. So intention was that sure is a reality, and he was taking the position that basically that no, in America, rape is looked down upon, it's illegal. If there are charges of rape that are shown to have stability to them, it's prosecuted, exalted in our culture. So that was how he viewed rape culture. So he really pushing the students that he talked to prove him wrong, based on his rape culture was. So that was a show, and then I was surprised that Jeff actually took a different position than I did because we're so like-minded on so many things.
Oh,
So what is your position on rape culture?
yeah,
Who?
Jeff.
Who? Me?
Jeff. Yeah.
Well, what did you say? What university that was?
I think it was Texas Christian University.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I think I feel like I might be being portrayed in a way that isn't quite what my actual position is. But what I was pointing out to Dana was that this term rape culture may not be exactly what she thought it was. And while it might be easy to say, oh, no, we don't have a rape culture. And also, I've heard some of the arguments against it saying that we don't have a rape culture. But if you look at their definition of rape culture and you look at what they're saying this word means, then we do actually have uh, elements of what they describe as a rape culture. The problem, I think, is that they've taken and defined the word so broadly that if you go to try to argue with them, you ought to be really careful because they're using the term rape culture in a pretty broad thing. So if you're talking with somebody who's saying this, you might actually have to agree that we have a rape culture based on their own definitions, or you need to work on redefining the words, if that makes any sense. So, with that said, what do you think a rape culture is, Ron? Just so I can have your opinion on it. Then I'll read you what they say it is, and then we'll work out those details. Because I think when you hear rape culture, you might not know what they actually define it as.
Well, I've always understood rape culture as rape culture on like college campuses. So, for instance, I don't know exactly the statistics, 1 in 4, something crazy like that. Um, where they're saying, women, 1 in 4 women are raped on college campuses. I think it's some large number that people throw out there. And there are obviously different sides. The other side of it is much lower. And again, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's much lower. And so you have these two sides. One that's says it's very prevalent on college campuses and uses numbers and some statistics to explain it. And then you have the other side saying, no, it's not a prevalent thing on college campuses in America. and they have statistics, and they come up with reasons why they make their arguments. So what it boils down, well, let me answer your question though. You asked the question,
You're doing a good job, by the way.
what
I
is
just
my
want to give you some a pat on the back there. That's pretty good, Ron. Keep going, keep going. So to answer my question,
yeah.
what is rape culture?
So to answer your question, what is rape culture? Um, from my understanding, at least from what I've heard, rape culture is it's not so much an attitude that rape is acceptable in our culture, meaning that there's this kind of broad acceptance of, well, that just happens. But rape culture is it happens. That's what I've picked up on. I haven't heard anything beyond it just happens to make a really solid argument on what exactly is rape culture. So I think really my question is, what is rape culture?
All
Because
right.
beyond saying, well, it happens, that's really all I've heard from that side. Um, I
Now let
don't.
me ask you.
I tend to agree with some of the other side's arguments, and that's just because some of it's just logical. You know, if in fact the statistics were that high on, you know, going to college and getting raped, the big question is, why would you even send your kids there? Why would you do that? I mean, that's one of those things that in itself, just from observation, should tell you, yeah, that doesn't hold a lot of weight. Anyway, from my perspective. But now, please, I don't know. I guess I don't know what it is. If it means anything beyond what I just stated.
Well, would you say, if you had to make a guess, would you say that the widespread rape going on at college campuses is occurring or not occurring?
Is it's Are you so let me make sure I understand your question. You're saying
Are you gonna? I'm gonna ask it again.
you're asking me, do I
Is the
mm-hmm,
widespread rape of women on college
mm-hmm.
campuses occurring or not?
From what I understand, it occurs.
Widespread rape?
But no, but the no, not some widespread problem.
Okay.
I think
Well,
from what
ding
I
ding ding
understand,
ding. Ron, you are part of rape culture.
okay,
Because one of the
from what
things
I
on the list here is denial of widespread rape.
well, yeah, of course they're gonna say that.
Well, just telling you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
Part of
part of
it
part
says
of
right
the
here
characteristics.
behaviors commonly associated with rape culture include denial of widespread rape.
hmm
So
Yeah,
there
so
you
let's go with
go.
it.
So
What's the
you
definition?
just well, that's one thing that's commonly
Okay,
part of it. So you're part
all
of the
right,
rape culture, just for what you said
okay,
right there.
perfect,
Another one is
perfect.
sexual objectification. Do you
Which
think
is,
that women are sexually objectified
well,
in this culture?
explain explain what that
Well,
means.
there.
Give real world examples for
I'll
people
give you an
to
example. If you go
understand.
down the grocery line and look at the magazines, is it scantily clad men or women that you see on the covers of those magazines?
Well, I mean, do you think
Well, this is a simple question, Ron.
I see both actually?
It is true, actually. Nowadays, there's more, but
Yeah, I see.
generally, it's the women mostly.
Yeah, but I see both. I mean, I see both today. I mean, yeah, I know in the past, you know, you'd see more women. But So, sorry, women just seem to not really be into a lot of things that males are, right?
Well, I'm just asking, do you think that women are sexually objectified in this culture?
No, because that means that gravitate. See, it's when you frame it in that negative kind of light, and you frame the question in a way that puts someone in a position to, yeah, that can be an interesting discussion. But I mean, we have to really break this thing down the right way and not frame a question that puts someone in a position to defend something that doesn't exist, or at least
Well, I'll
doesn't
say
appear
something.
to
I
exist.
think women are objectified in the media. I think that the chances I have to see the media, I still see women scantily clad. If I watch a even an NFL game, go to someone's house for a Super Bowl, those women, those cheerleaders, you don't think that's objectification of women?
Um, explain what's
Wearing
going
those
on.
little
What's
outfits and dancing around?
Yeah, and
Okay, well, I
are
guess
they
you
are
and I
they
have
are they
different.
ch are they choosing to do that?
Well, I'm just pointing out that they are kind of like objects at that point, aren't they?
No, not really.
Not
They're
objects
entered.
to look. Oh, they're just entertained. They're just they're just entertainers.
What are they
Well, I'm
beyond
going to say something
entertainment?
that might shock you. I believe they wear the outfits and they dance in the ways they do because of the sexual nature of all of that.
So,
I know it's going to surprise you, but there are people who actually look at those women, enjoy looking at those women, put pictures
mhm.
of those women on their walls, and show other men those pictures, and they objectify those women.
Mm. Okay, okay. So, how do we? I think you can say that that's what that means, and
Okay,
and and let's go with that.
I'm just
Let's
saying
go.
I think so. You may
Okay,
not agree.
no,
How about this
no.
one? Do you think that in some of these cases that you hear that the victim has some responsibility within what occurred? Some of these things you hear about, such as at drinking parties and things like that.
No, I tend to think no.
Okay.
Not most of the time. Um, and
Okay, that's fine. I
but
agree with you. Do you ever hear people, though, say, well, they were at a party and she was drunk. What the heck was she doing? Have you ever
yes,
heard that? All right.
yes.
Well, that's part. Victim blaming is part of rape
Hmm.
culture.
Yeah.
Have you ever, whether you agree with the next one or not, is a good question. And then I'll ask if you've ever heard it. So, do you think that if a person is wearing certain clothes or moving in provocative ways or speaking in provocative ways, that person is should be shamed for
No.
those behaviors? Okay. Have you ever seen somebody uh, shame somebody for wearing those outfits and also uh, talking about how people wearing those clothes invite problems?
Yes,
I have too.
I have,
I
but
have.
I don't have. Yes, I have, and I have a couple times. Maybe I'll go with a good handful of times at
Okay.
least.
Me too.
But hold on. Let me qualify. I don't have any. But here's the thing: I can't remember the specifics of any of those conversations, other than general kind of yeah, I've had, yes, I've had plenty of those conversations.
So,
Yes.
according to what I'm reading here, behaviors commonly associated with rape culture include victim blaming, slut shaming, sexual
Hmm.
objectification, denial of widespread rape. There's other things on here, but what I'm suggesting to Dana is that because they've taken this term rape culture and they've included a lot of this stuff in it, if you're using their terms, you're gonna have to that by their own definitions, a lot of that stuff is happening.
Um, yeah, okay. I'll go.
And I'm looking at a college website. Sexually explicit jokes is part of rape culture.
Yeah, yes.
Inflating false rape report statistics. So if you're someone who talks about false rape report statistics
Hmm.
and you're inflating the importance of those, then you're part of rape culture.
Right, right.
So, this is a wild topic. It's not just what you think it is. Um, And I think it's Ben Shapiro and others talk about how rape is illegal, it's looked down upon, and how people are prosecuted for that crime if you're reporting. And I think the problem is when they say all those things, while those things are true, and those are the first thoughts I have when I hear rape culture, I think, well, what are you talking about? You can't rape people, and people don't like rape. And I think myself and most people think rape is horrible. What do you mean rape culture? That's my first response. But when I read their definitions of what they're saying,
Hmm.
it's a pretty loose and fast and loose, I guess. It's a pretty loosely defined idea. And so I think what Dana, if she's still awake, uh, is talking about my knee jerk reaction is, of course, that's not true. Rape's illegal, rape's horrible, and if it occurs, somebody should and does go to jail uh, if they're found guilty. But that's not what they're talking about.
Yeah, so when Crowder comes to campus, or like you mentioned, Ben Shapiro, they're stuck in the olden times where rape meant something specific, right? They're playing with the old definition of the word. And what the, I guess, progressive advocate or whoever is advocating, they're, like you said, it's kind of like they got a wild, they're attaching a lot to it
That's what I
that,
like about you, Dan. It's just a,
oh,
yeah,
boom,
yeah,
boom.
yeah, yeah.
um, so yeah, so that's going to be confusing, right? Like maybe they should have defined terms much more clearly when he did that debate, when Crowder went to the campus, because
Hmm.
he's playing with just a different definition,
Yeah.
and people get really angry if he would challenge this idea. Because I think too, the first woman he talked to on the Change My Mind episode, I think she kind of interchanged between, she said, I was raped, my rapist still is on campus. And then I thought she then changed and said that she was assaulted, and how assault is also rape, which, so I would think that would include like just being groped when you don't want to be groped. And I wouldn't call that rape. I'd say that was assault or unwanted touching, and that's bad. But I my sense is that when some of these, they're going back in different terms, and it's very unclear what exactly they're talking about.
Well, and that's in the beginning when I gave, what I thought it was, what I thought it meant. Um, it boils down to, but here's Dana, to your point. Here's the thing. My original response to kind of what rape culture is that this problem actually exists. And I don't mean in theory, I mean exist, and you could point to it and you can say, yeah, 1 in 4 women that go to college campuses, and attend, college are raped. Whatever, Jeff, you probably have that statistic handy, possibly.
So I've heard this discussed a lot recently,
Mm-hmm.
but before we even touch that, I just want to know
But can you give me that? Can
even questioning it, Ron.
Well, I know, I
Just
know
to be
you're gonna
clear,
go. I know you're
just to
gonna
be
go
clear,
there. I
any
know you're gonna.
even questioning it makes us part of their little game on words.
Okay. No, I know. I know.
So even if we even begin to discuss it,
But I
we're
know.
already right there on the edge of rape culture.
No,
I
I
mean, do
know.
you want to step into being part of the rape culture and actually asking questions?
Well, let's. I think if we. Here's the great thing about these discussions is that you can have these discussions doing what we're doing. See, like you take mainstream media and you include Fox News with that, and include not many handful of right wing media groups or companies, and then lump those into all the mainstream, what they call liberal, progressive media, right? Um, Lump everybody in together for a moment, and you will get oftentimes, soundbite kind of stuff, arguments that last a couple minutes. Um, Nothing's really addressed thoroughly. But in these kind of forums, where you can have a discussion, you can take these discussions a little bit further, which I think are important. So, for instance, Dana bringing up the video. This is, I think, yeah, good topic for discussion because, um, it's a video that's out there. I watched it independent. I heard about it independently of you. I mean, the first time that we talked about it was just right before we jumped on, right? On the call tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that was at least I think it's out there in our culture. So people are talking about it, but having these discussions, being able to dig in a little bit deeper, I think is important. So again, sometimes we talk about what are we doing? Why are we doing this? These are the reasons why we're doing this, to dig in a little bit deeper into these topics. So back to the video, back to this issue of does it exist? I Dana, you bring up a good point. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. I think you define it well, and that is we need to define what we're talking about. Because if we're talking about uh, these things actually taking place, I'm not so sure about that. In the instances that I have heard about, and which I guess aren't many, I know a few even personally. I have somebody actually really close to me. And I actually witnessed a couple things myself, not only with this person, but in a couple other instances. But um, I don't know that it's actually this like widespread thing. Like I
There you
think
did it.
there, but I think there. But
You
here's the
said it.
thing.
You said
Here's
the
the thing,
words.
Dana. I think when we talk about the definition, if you watch the video, and this is again why I want to come back to the video. This is what I meant to say earlier. If you watch the video, their discussion seems to center around those things actually taking place. I mean, they're saying that there is this epidemic of rape going on on campuses. It's not just a theory, at least from my understanding. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it sounds like they are actually saying that those things are taking place. They even give numbers. It's not just I yes, they use a very broad definition, um, and it means a lot of things. And it, like Jeff is pointing out, even bringing up the discussion, right, brings up this thing of, you're trying to question what it is. Well, okay, but still, what is it? Where is it? And I think that's the point you were trying to make, Dana.
Well, the students on the video, there were a few times where they did say, I know several people on this campus who have been raped. And the first woman was saying she was raped, and she knows other women in the crowd. There must be several others who were raped. And I think at those times, I think she was using the word rape, and it seemed like, I mean, it'd be really not clear if she was using it in a different sense. Like, I don't think she was saying, oh, like, are, if that's part of rape culture. I don't think she was using the sense. I think she was saying literally, there's been this number of people who have been raped in the traditional sense. And obviously it's, so sure, on one hand, maybe when I think of rape, I think of the forceful, like it's a very forceful, terrible assault on a woman, right?
Yes.
But it does make me wonder when I hear when Jeff was talking more about the broader definition of rape culture, and then what I know goes along with a lot of the partying atmosphere and like a hookup culture and all those things. It really did make me think, well, again, I guess it's very hard to ask those questions, but are some of the things being talked about, are these including instances where a woman is too drunk, to really give consent, and also I would assume many times the male is drunk too, and they just, um,
well,
it's a little less clear than one of those forceful, a guy jumps out of the bushes and rapes somebody, where there does seem to be some consensual behavior leading up to it, and then maybe the next day the woman feels incredibly violated and doesn't believe that she gave consent due to being so inebriated. And I wonder if that's being included. And I think the woman too would feel very violated and terrible, and maybe the male has regrets too, or might not even remember. I mean, your sense of everything, I think, can get really, really distorted when you're under the influence. And so, as Jeff was advocating for this, or saying that these people are using the broader definition of rape culture, and I was thinking about scenarios that are probably happening in these, like in a party atmosphere where drinking is involved, just aren't practicing very strict standards. I do think it's a really bad culture for women, and I think women in that type of culture, where promiscuity and immodesty and all sorts of things are acceptable, I think that type of culture is going to result in women being violated and having a lot of emotional and just really deep pain as a product of being environment, the ones who get hurt more than the men. I don't know if the men are going to have that same sense of violation and regret if they were doing things that they didn't fully consent to due to being drunk. So Jeff's kind of his pushing, when he was pushing me to consider what maybe the more progressive advocates are talking about. It did make me think, well, sure, if that's how they're defining rape culture, that is a rape culture. on college campuses, as I understand the general culture to be. And I think that type of culture is extremely bad for women. Women are going to be the ones who really, I don't know, they get the in that situation and changed. It's a bad culture. He
Um,
so Jeff changed my mind.
okay. Okay. Um, no, that's I'm gonna say I'm gonna break it down to, can you hear me, or am I breaking up?
Dana was breaking up, and I wasn't sure if that was only
Okay.
for me. Was that for
Okay.
you too, Ron?
Oh,
Yeah, she was a little bit. I mean, I still heard you. I still got what you were saying, but you broke up a little bit.
do you hear me? Do you see me?
I see your like profile picture.
No, I mean in the existential sense. Do you hear me, Ron?
Yes, yes, I
Are
do.
you
Very,
hearing me?
yes, yes, I am hearing you, Dana. So I will say, and you heard me say when he asked me the specific questions, you heard me have some agreement with him. So I will say, if you're going to use that definition, as rape culture exists, then I will go, okay, that's fair. That's a fair discussion. That's a fair discussion. And I'm going to say that yes, that exists in some circles. But again, some circles. I don't think that exists in all kind of social gatherings, meaning that people of interest tend to gather with each other. And so, have you guys ever seen the movie Kids?
Yes, a
Yeah,
long time ago.
yeah. Remember that? I think we had this discussion, Dana, a long time ago.
Did we?
I think
Before the
so.
show?
Long before the show, like 20 years ago.
We should have recorded that.
Yeah, I think we talked about, it wasn't that long ago, but it was close to that. It was probably like 15 years ago, seriously. But I think we talked about that movie a little bit. Anyway, that movie I think accurately depicts a lot of social circles. Um, not not are you still on, Dana? Did she drop?
Um, well, you think that noise was her disappearing?
Yeah.
Dana, maybe she fell asleep.
Possible. Anyway, that that does exist. That kind of stuff does happen. But I don't know anybody that would categorize that as actual rape in the traditional sense of the word.
Are you
Uh,
referring to the movie, or
yeah,
what are you referring to?
yeah, the movie. Well, I'm using that as an example
Now
of
I'm having trouble
I
remembering, but is there a
well
scene in the
that
movie where
movie
they're
well
both
that
kind of
that
all drugged out and
yeah,
they have relations?
yes.
Unfortunately, I don't remember enough, and maybe with our hundreds of viewers, there's got to be some who don't remember. Maybe you could clarify.
Well, I think if you watch that movie, I think maybe not, but I think that's a close like visual of what you're describing as the rape culture, and what you're saying that the more progressive thought is when it comes to rape culture. I think that movie depicts what you're describing as the definition.
Okay.
So with that said, I mean, yeah, I think in some circles that exist, but I don't think that exists in every circle. I just don't. I've seen been a lot of social diverse, very, very diverse. Well, let's say I've had a lot of opportunities to gather with people, right, in certain social settings, and that stuff doesn't
You,
exist in every social circle. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I would,
hmm,
can I boom in?
Did you
go
hear me
boom
the whole
in.
time?
I heard some of it. Um, my
It was
cheek is
great. Was
really
it was awesome,
fat.
wasn't it?
It's totally awesome. My cheek is fat, so it accidentally hangs up the phone for me. But you were talking about how some social circles are reflective of what happened in the movie Kids with drug use, right? And the just the
Yeah.
really bad situations.
Well, I brought up that movie because of what Jeff was describing, right? Seems to be depicted in that movie. Like he's saying that progressives, when it comes to what rape culture means, the definition of rape culture, right? He described a few things. And well, that movie kind of goes along with that stuff. Yes? No? Am I wrong? Do you remember it?
Yeah, no, I remember especially the scene at the end where basic's raping a girl, right?
Right. Right.
And infecting her, I think, with HIV. And yeah, so that's in my mind, that kind of stuff. And I went to I went to pretty pretty lewd drinking parties on college campuses before I became a Christian. And yeah, there's all sorts of just bad situations that come out of those things, and also just like the clubbing atmosphere too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what's in my mind when I was starting to think through what these people might be talking about. And when you talk about different circles, right? When I was at for my last 2 years of college, when I lived on campus, my social circles were these very evangelical Christian circles. So I was in all sorts of social situations on college campuses, and those were like probably the exact opposite of rape culture. Um,
Right. Right.
very wholesome. We'd be praying. There were there were even ideas, I think, about men and women being different and women being afforded certain protections and just discretion. Like there weren't a lot of, you know, filthy jokes or things like that, or um, overt flirting. It was a very pure culture. And even the people who were dating, I think of one couple right now who I think was even engaged. You wouldn't see public displays of affection from them. I think they were actually waiting to have a first kiss on their wedding day, or a first French kiss, I guess. But it was a very pure culture. So so yeah, that's such a contrast to what I think a lot of these people might be participating in. They're in a different world, even while being college students at the same school. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of different ways you can live that out. And if I were to pick which was a superior culture, I would pick the overly pure, um, very, I don't know, just very controlled, I guess, culture. That's
Yeah.
that's where if
Yeah.
a rape happened in that, we would be up, we would spend time together in people's. Um, I spent time in. I think sometimes I was the only female in a apartment with like 6 or 7 other men, and I never felt violated or worried for my safety or worried that someone would take advantage of me if I fell asleep on the couch. That just was not there at all. It was a very safe, safe place. If a rape happened there or unwanted sexual assault, I would have been very, very surprised. But not so much with the clubbing party type culture.
Well, and you would also say that if something like that happened, the reaction of the community would be very different than the reaction of the community that says it exists. So, for instance, I think if that were to happen, there'd be a lot of people gathering around that person, supporting obviously the victim, and then the person that committed that crime. That would be another story too. There would a lot of people probably gathered against it, right? I mean, that's not unrealistic
Yeah,
to
I would.
say, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. And it would be just almost, I was thinking back about all these social situations I'm in, and yeah, I would think it'd be pretty bizarre because again, I, you wouldn't see people dancing in a provocative way or making out or any of the things that might lead up to some type of um, you know sexual or rape scenario. It just was, there weren't even the steps leading up to that. It was like we would sit on the couch and everybody would be fully clothed. And it was just, yeah, I mean, it was so different than probably what was typical. Because, I lived in the dorms the first year too, and I was an older student. Um, and I know that there was a lot of drug use and drinking, and I wasn't part of it at all. I had no interest in situations removed, but I remember hearing about people's some of their kind of hookup stories or whatever, and it was just so, I just wasn't part of that.
So I think you would have some agreement with me then. I know you agreed with Jeff and he changed your mind a little bit, but I'm hoping to kind of broaden that and say, yes, in certain circles that probably is something that exists, but that's not in every circle, and therefore, to say that there's a widespread that you can blanket the campus with this idea of rape culture. I don't think that's fair. For me personally.
Like, you mean like in the classrooms and
Just
something
everywhere,
that's
just every,
advocated for?
yeah, well, just yeah, that in, but just the sheer number that they're saying happens. I don't know that that's true. I just from my own
There you did it
observation,
again.
just from my own observation, just from my own
Do I need
experience,
to read the list to you again?
just from the many people that I know that have attended schools, I
Are
mean,
you denying the
that
widespread
would
rape?
be that would be something that would be so talked about. I mean, if that was true, what's the statistic? I mean, give me, maybe
Well,
I'm wrong. What is it?
so Crowder brought up, I think what Crowder brought up, and Jeff is really handy, so he could probably look this up too. He brought up the actual, I think, reported rapes or convicted. I know there's a difference between reported rapes and convictions, but one of those numbers was, I think, one women are raped and that rape is reported to the police. That's the
Well,
average. So then I think that's right, Jeff? And then to go from that to then with what they're saying, I guess you said the 1 in 4 rapes are happening. 1 out of every 4 women is raped by the time they graduate college. So yeah, that seems like such a disparity between what the criminal records are versus what these people are saying. But if they're also including things like just unwanted touching or maybe a situation that went further than what they wanted, I would certainly say yes. That's probably a greater number.
They often include sexual assault. So if I'm reading the Bureau of Justice statistics here, and sexual assault is a wide range of victimizations separate from rape or attempted rape. These crimes include attacks or attempted attacks, generally involving unwanted sexual contact between victim and offender. Sexual assaults may or may not involve force and include such things as grabbing or fondling. It also includes verbal threats.
Yeah, so I can remember like going to clubs And sure, there's like sexual assault there every time you go to a club, because guys would come up and rub against me or my friends, and we weren't happy about that. You know, that was something that we'd mostly laugh at it, like, oh, he's gross. But yeah, if you're going to say that that is part of this number,
Sounds like
sure,
you're
then I could see if you're in what
trivializing, Dana. You're
I'm not well,
trivializing. You are right here. That's one of the things on the list, trivializing rape and sexual assault.
oh, sure. So I think the way that people often dance today, very,
Oh,
very,
you
it's
just did it
very
again.
assaulting.
That's
It's just,
slut shaming and victim blaming. You did all three within a 30-second period of time. You did trivializing, slut shaming, and victim blaming,
So
all in
I
the
think we
same
should
sentence.
I think we should have 9 Supreme Court justices, all female, just like Dana.
I'm not sure where that came from, Ron. Are you just having random thoughts tonight? I'm just kidding.
just speaking from his heart. So here's what I think. Here's wondering, and maybe it'd be good to do a second segment with somebody who is, you know, thinks differently. We have a very fiery friend, but I don't know if this topic probably wouldn't be the best for him. And I don't know if we can handle him on this show, but somebody else who is coming at it from a different perspective, because my question would be, are really, very much, I guess, okay, or agreeing with the idea that we should call what's happening on college campuses in some circles rape culture. If you think that's a fitting name for it, and if you are upset about it, would you be interested in the alternative? Like, and what would the specifics be? I think I described a real viable social alternative from what I was experiencing, what I experienced at college in my uber Christian circles. As stated before, that'd be a alcoholic, non sexually provocative, modest, and even with people who were couples, there weren't really public affection. And it was a very safe culture, and I would not call that a rape culture. But are these people interested in something like that being on college campuses?
Yeah.
No partying, no drinking, no pot, and singing in prayer.
Yeah.
and wholesome conversation and board games. We would play board games.
Right.
Like, and it was fun.
Do really crazy things like line dancing.
We did swing dancing at Amanda's house.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so
and boxing, I think we did
that
boxing.
would be a good conversation.
Yeah, you and
boxing.
Alan. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me and Alan boxing.
Yeah, so I just would wonder, is this really what they're looking for? Because it's kind of like, I mean, obviously, I think I've heard advocates are trying to reform their rape culture from within by having more explicit teaching about like the steps of consent, because they're trying to put some rules and some guidelines for this type of culture where people are hooking up with people who aren't their spouse or their intended spouse. So you have to put a lot more safety precautions on that, I guess. So they're trying to go through like having checklists or whatever. And maybe that's one way that they're going to go about it, and that's going to really probably help things. But I think, though, as long as you have a culture where and sexualized dancing and alcohol and drugs are all I don't know how you're going to make things much better than what they are right now. I think
Mm.
women are going to continue to be hurt and, maybe justifiably angry, and they're going to deal with a lot of problems because of the rape culture that's flourishing, and ways that I think there are more superior culture they could choose instead. But if they want to stay in that culture, then it's going to be a painful time.
Why do you hate college kids? I mean, why do you hate them so much?
What? All right. Now, before we go down this, I must say that you have to mention the alternative to your Christian gatherings, and
Well,
I'm
hey,
pretty
hold
sure
on a
I
sec.
I can I can I can summarize what that is. But what's up, Ron?
Hold on, Dana. Just real quick, Dana. That was very well said.
Thank you, Ron. You are so affirming.
Yeah, that was
And I
good.
must
That was.
say, also a compliment. I think what you were saying reeks of common sense.
I
Yeah.
never, in all my, well, Jeff, I do spend time, like you, listening to NPR and and I listen to different
Oh, yuck.
sources. And I
Yuck.
don't think in all these discussions I've heard of rape culture and people's stories, I don't think I've heard the alternative culture being discussed as a viable alternative. Not once.
Well, well, that's one. You're presenting one. I do know theirs because they present it.
Purity
They present it.
culture,
They
purity
present it.
culture is often ragged on. It's often ragged on
Yeah,
and viewed as
Yeah, yeah,
oppressive,
yeah, yeah.
it
very
is.
oppressive.
But real quick,
It
real quick.
is.
We have to. I have to at least voice what I know to be the other culture, and that other culture includes freedom. Dana is the key word. Freedom. Freedom to drink. Freedom to pass out. Freedom to get as high as a kite. Freedom to dress in whatever outfit you want. Freedom to move however you want and lick whoever you want and gyrate on whoever you want. All of that exists, and they just have one rule, which is that at any time and at any moment, if a person says no, everything must stop. So it's just the consent culture, and they would say, and I've heard it said, and I don't think it's hard to understand what they are suggesting. Forget common sense for a second, Dana, but just what they're suggesting. What they're suggesting is the only rule is consent. So someone can wear whatever they want, say whatever they want, drink whatever they want, smoke whatever they want, shoot up whatever they want, act however they want, do anything, and even participate in activities of consensual thing. But the minute they say no, it stops 100%. And that's their view. I think that is their view.
Well, Jeff,
I'll agree you should not violate somebody's consent. Like that
yes.
is a bad thing.
Well, can I say that? Can I
Right?
say that in that environment where that exists and that kind of common, when somebody says no, it means no. That
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of times where men or boys at the time, or young males and even older males, where they have gotten the no from a woman and they took that seriously and walked away and didn't pursue anything. There was plenty of that too. And I would say I don't personally. I mean, again, I don't personally have a whole lot of experience with the opposite. I have seen a couple of instances that were questionable, but not to the extent of what I think the more aggressive kind of. I think what they're talking about is a little bit more of an aggressive behavior where a woman doesn't really have a choice. And I know that exists. I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to say that that doesn't happen. I know it does. And I know personally people, somebody very close to me, that stuff has happened to. And again, I've seen some things when I was very young, that were a little troubling. And so I know that it does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't. What I'm trying to say is I don't think it's as widespread as it's being said it is. In again some circles, because that, again, like Dana described perfectly. You
But
know,
those are
to
two proposed solutions. One solution is that we just simply have this very strong consent culture where everyone has the social, it's like a social norm of consent that, and that is going to occur no matter what somebody's wearing, no matter what they're acting, how they're acting, no matter what they're saying, no matter how conscious they are. It's a consent thing. And then there's also the idea, yeah, if somebody's unconscious, then that can't be consent. And so you also have this within the consent idea is that if you're unsure of someone's consent, or if there's any question whatsoever about their consent, then you don't pursue. And so I think the people on the other side, Dana, to be fair, and uh, that you hear in the general culture is that's the answer. The answer is we all agree on
Yes.
consent. But practically
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah.
since people are kind of ugly,
absolutely.
I will say, I guess my opinion would be that practically speaking, since people, the world is not rainbows and unicorns, and the numbers themselves show that people are ugly, and so I could walk down the street in the middle of the night in Pomona and just say, the world ought to be a good place, and I should be able to walk down the street and down the alleys and down the different places in Pomona on a Saturday night, and everything should be fine. But the reality is, I know that ugly people exist out there, and so I need to think about that and be cautious. And I think you could accuse me of victim blaming, and I think that's an inappropriate accusation. I think that I'm saying the world sucks, and unfortunately, you have to live in a world that sucks, and you can't ignore that reality, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense. I again, I'll I, I have seen and witnessed, some things that aren't good. Not just in this topic, just which you guys have too. You guys know personally of different situations. Um, so yes, that's true. And I don't think it's wrong to say, you need to be careful. And again, I think in some circles and even say some areas of the country or certain cities or certain places in the city, that those things are more prevalent, right? I mean, you mentioned you should be able to go down the streets of Pomona, the alleys of Pomona on a Saturday or whatever, right? Walk around and not really have to worry about those things. Yeah, as well as I know that, stuff happens, right? And it can be dangerous. And so you have to be cautious. And, you know, particularly in certain areas in Pomona, that's just a reality. That's a fact. But there might be some other places where you could say, yeah, you know what, that same kind of thing is possible, but you're not really too worried about it in general. Meaning, you can go to a very wealthy neighborhood and something tragic like that could happen to you, but the chances are much lower in certain areas, right? I mean, so again, it seems to be certain kinds of circles, right? Certain kinds of gatherings, a little, maybe, no, yes,
No, that is what I'm saying. I'm saying that
okay.
nobody should ever be raped. Consent should always be the rule, and it's a disgusting world we live in where that isn't always what happens. However,
But
it's
do you
so
think it's a big
challenging
do you think it's a big problem though on college campuses?
for my and so first of all, before I say anything else, let me just backpedal back way back to the beginning of this. All I'm saying overall is that they've come up with the term and defined it in such a loose and broad way that in a way, uh, if you just go strictly by their loose definition, it's kind of a strange sentence right there, right? Strictly by their loose definition, then it is a rape culture. Um, it's not the way I would define what I think of when I hear rape culture, but the way they're defining it, it's all these things. So, as another example,
You would
you
call it a
even
lewd culture, gross culture.
a gross culture. There you go. It's a gross culture. See, I like that better. But so even us questioning the statistics, some people would say, "Boom, right there. You know, that's it. You're part of the problem," and that's a scary place to be, where we question, the data. But what you would need to do is, go look at the data, and we'd have to, learn from it and just see what it says. I almost forgot what you were saying, but what were you saying exactly about the data?
I was asking what the exact numbers are that they were quoting as far as what actually occurs on college campuses. And
Yeah.
and I want to know the statistics for, I think it's 1 in 4, something like that.
Yeah. So I was looking into them a little bit while you and Dana were talking, and I don't have them in front of me anymore. Or no, I have them here actually. So they say things like a college woman is 3 times more likely than just a regular woman to have sexual assault. Let's see. Are at risk. Let's see. Women age 18 to 24. Sorry, 18 to 24 are at an elevated risk of sexual violence. So college women are 3 times more likely than any other age woman from 18 to 24 to be uh, um, sexual violence to occur, and then 4 times for people that are not in college. So actually, people that are 18 to 24 not in college are more likely to have something going on.
What
But
does that mean, though? What does that mean? Three
what they're
times
saying
more
is
likely.
that sexual assault occurs more for women 18 to 24 than my grandma.
But they're also including like someone flashing a woman, right?
I think
The
that sexual
dance floor
assault, as I
scenario
read
that would
before, is how
include all
they,
those things. That's not just rape.
yeah, they include everything. So sexual violence on campus is pervasive, is what this website says. And it's the one I think people refer to. 11.2% of all students experience rape, but then they always put or sexual assault. So it gets interesting. 11.2%, or 1 in 10, through physical force, violence, or incapacitation,
Yeah.
which is being passed out and that kind of stuff. Among graduate and
Did,
professional students, 8.8% of females and 2.2% of males experience rape or sexual assault through physical force, violence, or incapacitation. So, but remember, it's includes sexual assault, which can be as much as somebody saying something to you. I wish they
yeah.
would desegregate. I think that's the word, or disambiguate might be the word. The data, so you actually know what these numbers are, because it's so broadly referring to things that it could be as much as a cat call.
Yeah. And
You
then
were
I think
catcalled recently, Dana, in your life, while you were pushing a stroller with all
Were
your
you?
children.
oh that was
What?
bizarre. That was
Hey,
just so
can you tell me
bizarre.
what it's? Can you like repeat it? Like what it was? It like ow,
He
like
yelled at
like
me.
like what? Like what
Hey!
happened?
It was bizarre. Like I don't get catcalled anymore.
Like
Um,
what happened? Like what did
I
it
think
sound like? Was it like
I was
ow?
pushing. No, he actually yelled at me like I was scared, but I was pushing my baby home in my stroller and just in my mom style. Um, and this man, like he pulled over and there's a really big street that I have to cross. So he pulled over and he was on the other side and he yelled at me. And I don't know what he said at first, but I was worried. I thought, oh my gosh, I had some more, my older children were still following, like coming up from the park. So I thought maybe one of them got hurt or something and he's trying to get my attention. So I turned towards him right away. And then he yelled, "Hey, do you need a ride? Do you need a ride?" And I'm like, "No." And then I think he asked me again, and I just turned around and started walking. So I don't know if that counts as a cat call. He was a very
Well, I was talking about the guy who
awkward
was
cat
telling you
calling.
that he
Oh,
wanted to marry you
oh, that was years ago. Oh
like
yeah, that one.
5 years ago.
No, that was like 10 years ago.
No,
Anyway, that
that
cat
was not 10
call.
years ago. That was in my at my school in the
Okay.
parking lot.
Yeah. Well, I think he said something like,
Oh, let's hear more about that.
I think I was pregnant, heavily
Yes,
pregnant,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
loading up like 3 children into a minivan after letting them play at the school
Top secret
field,
school, at the top secret
at the
school.
top secret school. And then this man who was staring at me, I noticed him and I just thought, oh, great, like he might be a weirdo. And so I was trying to move faster, getting my children into the car because I had to buckle. I had several young children who needed help. And he said something like, hey, I think I want to be your husband. And then
I mean,
I had just recently read this book about predators, like and how women are the most women are preyed upon a lot by predators, and it was a book about listening to your gut instinct and then responding boldly so that you're not made into a victim. And so and so so I pulled out my pepper spray and I held out my pepper spray and I said, hey, when you talk to me like that, it makes me want to pepper spray you in the face.
Anyway.
And then he could look on his face and kind of like looked away and he didn't cat call me anymore. And so maybe my response was a little over the top, but it felt appropriate at the time. Just I'm trying to think, protect my children, and I didn't want this guy coming closer to me. But yeah, that was surprising because I wasn't dancing provocatively, and I was looking very covered up, especially with my big fat pregnant belly and my big jacket. But yes, you can be a victim of unwanted attention, I guess, no matter what you're doing.
yeah, loading kids fully pregnant into
In a minivan. And maybe there's kind of like maybe a machismo culture or something in the area that I was at the time. Maybe that was playing into it too.
Let me ask you this, Dana. Does that work? Does that approach work?
That's funny because Dana pointed it out to me. It's like, what are these people thinking? Like, I think you actually had this conversation. Like, does he do this for every woman he sees? And then, after 50 tries, like one of them's like, yes. Hey, baby, I want to be your wife.
I don't know what this guy was thinking. Like, that's a lot of children to support. I was like 5 going on 5 children right there. That's this big situation he's stepping into.
Well, I mean, if you're rolling the dice, I mean, does it land? Does it stick? Does it happen? I mean, it obviously like something makes him go, hey, let me give this thing a shot.
It's grit. He's got grit,
But some people would say that all of this we're talking about is rape culture, and that that's the thing. I think they're broadening this definition out. Whereas I would just say that's a gross person who's doing totally culturally, here comes the key, inappropriate things. And I think most people in this culture would say that's not right, and he shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And all this other stuff that people are doing is not right, and they shouldn't be doing that. And while crappy people exist, the actual culture is that we think this is gross overall.
Well, there's something. Hold on a second. There's something that is very, very important. in this discussion that needs to be said. There's the other very difficult side of this where people have been accused falsely. And that's an ugly side of this discussion as well, which almost nobody talks about. And that's a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal. People spend almost their entire lives in prison for being falsely accused of stuff. And so when we start categorizing stuff like cat calls and people saying, I want to be your husband, that's just classic. Anyway,
it got my attention. It got my attention.
I just want to know, does it land? Does it work? I mean, if you did that kind of stuff, because I mean, could you run a study doing stuff like that? Meaning, like
that's not going to work.
Like Jeff, like could we get like a scholarship to like run a study where you and I go out and we
stand in the corner. We do it. We just gotta see how you want to know how many times it works. How many times the conversation just keeps going?
Yeah, like how many times somebody's actually like, heck yeah, this is this is I scored.
That guy's got family values.
I just scored like big time.
Man. So you were saying something though about false accusations. I think you drifted a little bit. I know it's an interesting topic.
Yes.
That sounds like another show. That sounds like a whole nother show. I think this one might be in the books, Jeff, unless you have a final word or two. I'd say you did change my mind. Oh, there it goes.
Not really.
No. There's no music.
No music.
I'm just saying. Are you suggesting that maybe some music could play? Is that what you're saying?
Well, maybe. I mean, I guess just final thoughts. I would say that video, the Crowder video, and Jeff having this different opinion really did change my mind about. I still don't agree with their wording on calling it rape culture necessarily, but if with the definition they're using, sure, I agree. That culture is a bad culture and it needs to be dramatically reformed.
That circle, Dana, that social circle, not the culture, that social circle that exists in the culture.
Yes.
I think that if I understand what you're saying, or actually the silence that you're saying or not saying.